Marry Olivia, you have got to be kidding me. I am just with her for convenience. Caleb said those words so loudly that his laugh pierced through the heavy door of the old Boston brownstone and hit Olivia harder than any accusation ever could. She froze on the landing. Just a second earlier, she had been reaching into her coat pocket for her keys. Now her hand went still, her fingers tightening around the cold metal keychain. Her roller suitcase stood beside her, tilted onto one wheel. Dangling from its handle was a paper bag containing a small box tied with a dark green ribbon, a gift for Caleb. Every story has its beginning. This one starts like many others, but it will not end the way you think. Olivia was just returning from a financial conference in New York City. She was not supposed to be back in Boston until after midnight, but the last panel had been cancelled, and she managed to change her ticket to an earlier Acela train. She had sent Caleb a text right before leaving Penn Station. "I will be home around 7:00 p.m. I have a surprise for you." The message was delivered, but Caleb never replied. Olivia assumed he was either driving or on a call with a client. He was a sales representative and often took work calls late. Even that evening, she did not suspect a thing. Quite the opposite. The entire trip back, she imagined his surprise when he saw her early. In exactly 3 weeks, they were going to celebrate their 8th anniversary. For months, Olivia had been wondering if Caleb would finally start talking about marriage. She did not expect a movie-worthy diamond ring or an extravagant ceremony. She just wanted the certainty that their 5 years together were leading somewhere. They had built a life after all. Saturday morning grocery runs. Sunday breakfasts at that little coffee shop on Hanover Street. Summer trips to Cape Cod. Holiday visits, birthdays, evenings spent on the couch binging shows that Caleb never finished because he always fell asleep by the second episode. Olivia was convinced that these little things meant something. Now she stood outside her own apartment listening to the man to whom she had dedicated 5 years of her life call her a convenience. "Come on, man. Do not exaggerate." A different male voice chimed in. Olivia recognized Trevor, Caleb's coworker. "You guys have been together forever, you live together. Everyone says you are finally going to propose." "People can say whatever they want," Caleb replied. "I have no intention of complicating my life." From inside the apartment came the sound of a chair scraping against the floor, followed by the clink of a glass being set on the table. Olivia stared at the brass number 37 on the door. She knew every scratch on that wooden frame. She had picked out the wall colors, the light fixtures, the shelving. 3 years ago, she had bought this apartment using her own savings and a mortgage that she was still paying off every single month. Caleb moved in a few months later. Originally, he was supposed to split the living expenses down the middle. Over time, he increasingly used excuses. His commission check was delayed, a client had not paid, or his car needed immediate repairs. Olivia never made an issue out of it. She earned a good salary and believed that in a partnership, people sometimes support each other unequally. It never occurred to her that Caleb viewed her care as a privilege he was simply entitled to. "Then why are you even with her?" asked Marcus, the other buddy of his. Caleb laughed again. "Because I have it good here. The apartment is awesome. She handles the majority of the bills. The fridge is always fully stocked. She does not text me asking where I am every 5 minutes. Why would I give that up?" The men erupted into laughter. Olivia felt a sudden chill, even though the stairwell was filled with stuffy September air. Her heart was racing, but her thoughts became surprisingly clear and organized. She could unlock the door, walk straight into the living room, throw the gift on the table, and demand an explanation. She could ask Caleb exactly when she stopped being his partner and became a free hotel with complimentary room service. But she knew exactly how that conversation would play out. Caleb would deny everything first, then claim he was just joking around, and finally accuse her of eavesdropping. In the end, he would spin the situation so masterfully that Olivia would be the one forced to justify her reaction. She had watched him pull that exact trick in arguments with other people time and time again. He had an extraordinary talent for turning his own words into someone else's fault. That is why she did not open the door. She slowly pulled her phone from her purse, hit the record button, and placed the device on her suitcase right by the threshold. The red timer appeared on the screen. Caleb kept talking. "And marriage?" Trevor asked. "I think Olivia is expecting it." "Maybe," Caleb replied casually. "She has been looking at jewelry store windows weirdly lately. I just play dumb and pretend not to notice." "Are you not afraid she will leave?" "Olivia, where would she go? She loves stability. Besides, she is completely convinced we have the perfect relationship." Olivia closed her eyes, not to hold back tears because the tears did not come. Instead, she was met with a deep, cold silence, as if some part of her had just locked the door to the room where she had stored all her hope for years. "I still have some time," Caleb continued. "And if I meet someone more interesting, then I will think about it." "Someone more interesting?" Marcus sounded intrigued. For a few seconds, the apartment was quiet. "There is this girl, Chloe," Caleb finally said. "She works at one of my clients' offices. We have grabbed coffee a few times." "Does Olivia know?" "Why would she need to know?" "Nothing is official yet. You have to keep your options open." This time, nobody laughed right away. Trevor muttered something unintelligible, as if even for him, the conversation was starting to cross the line of good taste. Caleb, however, clearly failed to read the room. "The most important thing is not to do anything rash," he added, "until I am absolutely sure. Staying here is cheaper and totally stress-free." Olivia looked down at the gift bag. Inside was an elegant luxury watch. Caleb had been admiring it a few months earlier at the Credential Center, but deemed it way too expensive. Olivia had bought it right after her conference, wanting to surprise him just because. For a brief moment, she wondered how she could have been so blind to the truth. Then she realized it was not her fault for missing it. Caleb had deliberately constructed two versions of himself. One designed for her, affectionate, funny, and appreciative. The other designed for the people he wanted to impress, portraying himself as a clever guy, taking advantage of a highly profitable setup. Both versions were him. The phone recorded for another 15 minutes. The conversation shifted to work, cars, and a bachelor trip Trevor was planning. Olivia was no longer listening closely. The most important words had already been spoken. She slipped the phone back into her pocket and silently lifted her suitcase. Instead of using the elevator, she took the stairs. She did not want to risk the old mechanism halting, with its signature loud clunk and giving her away. Outside, a light rain had started to fall. Car headlights reflected off the wet pavement, and the smell of roasted garlic and bread drifted from a nearby Italian spot. Olivia stood under the brownstone awning and checked the recording. 43 minutes. She renamed the file Truth, emailed a backup copy to her private address, and saved it in a secure cloud folder. Only then did she hail a cab. She headed to a boutique hotel near Copley Square. At the front desk, she said she only needed a room for one night. The receptionist handed her a key card and wished her a pleasant stay. Olivia thanked her with a remarkably steady voice. Up in her room, she left her suitcase by the bed and placed the watchbox on the nightstand. She sat by the window, staring out at the glowing city skyline. Caleb still did not know she was back in Boston. He did not know she had heard every single word. He also did not know that in exactly 3 weeks for their anniversary, Olivia would be giving him an entirely different present than she had initially planned. She opened her calendar app and highlighted the date in bright red. Then she looked back at the file named in Truth. She had no intention of screaming, no intention of begging, and zero intention of fighting for a man who had made his decision a long time ago. She simply intended to ensure that Caleb would finally pay the full price for the comfortable life he valued so deeply. The next morning, Olivia woke up a few minutes before her alarm. For a moment, she was disoriented. She stared at the bright white ceiling of the hotel room, listened to the distant hum of city traffic, and tried to remember why she was not in her own bed. Then she saw her phone on the nightstand. The screen displayed the file name, Truth. It all came rushing back. Caleb's voice through the door, his friends' laughter, the comments about convenience, bills, and keeping his options open. Chloe, the apartment that he considered a cheap, stress-free waiting room until a better opportunity came along. Olivia sat up and stared out the window. Boston was just waking up. The streets were still slick from the overnight rain, and the autumn sunlight reflected off the glass office towers. She did not cry. She was genuinely surprised by that. She thought that after 5 years together, she should feel absolute despair, fiery anger, or at least a burning need to demand an immediate explanation. Instead, she was overwhelmed by something much calmer: certainty. Caleb had not just blurted out one unfortunate sentence. He had not been taken out of context. For 15 minutes, he had described their entire life together as a highly lucrative contract, one he intended to exploit for exactly as long as it remained profitable. Olivia got up, brewed a pot of hotel coffee, and opened her laptop. First, she checked her bank accounts. Almost all the household expenses were set to autopay from her checking account: the mortgage, the HOA fees, the electricity, the Wi-Fi, the home insurance. Caleb was supposed to transfer a set amount to her on the first of every month. But lately, those deposits had become increasingly sporadic. Up until now, Olivia had not kept a strict ledger. She firmly believed that couples should not nickel and dime each other over every dollar. This morning, she changed her mind. She downloaded the transaction history for the past 12 months and dropped it into a new spreadsheet. Next, she checked the authorized user credit card she had ordered for Caleb months ago to use for joint groceries and household items. It was being swiped far more often than she had realized. Gas stations, downtown steakhouses, an electronics store, and a hotel room just outside Providence, where Caleb claimed he had a mandatory company-paid 2-day training seminar. Olivia did not jump to wild conclusions. She did not know who he was there with or why he really went. What she did know was that he had paid for the stay using an account that was funded almost entirely by her. She locked the card. The banking portal asked for a reason. She selected the option stating the card was no longer needed. After that, she changed her online banking passwords and forced a logout across all devices. She was not doing this to punish Caleb. She was doing it to take back total control of her own money. At 8:30 a.m., her phone buzzed. Caleb. Olivia stared at his name on the caller ID for a long moment before answering. "Hey," he said breezily. "Where are you? I thought you were coming home late last night." His voice sounded exactly the same as always. Warm, slightly groggy, with that signature hint of playful amusement that she had found so charming for half a decade. "My train got delayed," she replied evenly. "I was exhausted, so I just grabbed a hotel room. I am heading home shortly." The lie came to her much easier than she expected. "You should have called me. I would have picked you up." Olivia looked at the audio file on her screen. "I did not want to wake you. I fell asleep super late anyway, was just watching a movie." Not a single mention of Trevor and Marcus, not a word about ordering takeout, the loud jokes, or the mocking of the very woman who was currently holding the phone to her ear. "How was the conference?" he asked cheerfully. "Did you bring me anything back?" Olivia glanced at the luxury watchbox resting on the hotel desk. "Yes," she answered, "something you will definitely not expect." Caleb laughed. "I cannot wait." She hung up and sat completely still. The most unsettling part of the exchange was that Caleb did not sound like a man hiding a guilty conscience. He sounded like someone entirely secure in his position. He was deeply convinced that Olivia would never find out a thing. And even if she did, he likely assumed he could easily talk his way out of it, calm her down, or just wait for it to blow over. An hour later, Olivia walked into her apartment. Caleb was standing in the kitchen by the espresso machine. He wore a gray crew neck sweater and dark slacks. On the kitchen island sat a plate of fresh croissants, as if he had prepared a loving welcome breakfast for his devoted partner. "Finally home," he said, walking over with a big smile. "I thought that conference was going to hold you hostage all weekend." He hugged her briefly. Olivia returned the gesture, but felt absolutely nothing but a cold sense of alienation. Just 24 hours earlier, she had loved the scent of his cologne, the warmth of his hands, and the way he would fix the collar of her coat. Now she felt like she was standing in front of a stranger who had simply memorized the role of the Caleb she used to love. I made you coffee, he said. Exactly how you like it, thank you. So, where is my present? Olivia pulled the box from her bag and set it on the granite counter. For a split second, she debated keeping it. Ultimately, she decided the watch was now just part of their goodbye, even if Caleb did not know it yet. He untied the ribbon, popped the lid, and beamed. Olivia, this is the exact model we were looking at in the Credential Center. I remembered, but it was way too expensive. I guess at the time I thought it was worth the investment. Caleb completely missed the icy undertone in her voice. He strapped the watch to his wrist and turned his arm, admiring how the dial caught the morning light streaming through the window. It is perfect, he said. You really know me. Olivia sat down on a bar stool. Yes, she knew him. She knew how he took his coffee before a big pitch, which dress shirt colors he despised, and exactly which sports network he watched on Sunday nights. She just had not known what he said about her when he thought she was out of earshot. What did you do last night? She asked smoothly. Caleb reached for a croissant. Nothing crazy. Got home from work, ordered some food, and threw on a movie. I did not even leave the apartment. Just you? The question was delivered lightly, almost casually. Caleb did not hesitate for a fraction of a second. Just me. I was totally dead on my feet. Olivia nodded. Makes sense. For the next 10 minutes he told her an elaborate story about a client who drastically changed an order, the horrible gridlock on Storrow Drive, and a coworker who was supposedly thinking about jumping ship to another firm. He spoke fluidly, calmly, and with absolute conviction. Never once did he mention that 2 other men had been sitting in their living room less than 12 hours ago. Olivia listened, and for the very first time, she did not try to fix his story in her head. She did not look for excuses. She did not try to justify his behavior by blaming work, stress, fatigue, or passing it off as a clumsy joke. Every new lie just stacked neatly next to the previous one, like bricks in a perfectly engineered wall. After breakfast, Caleb left for the office. Right before the door closed, he looked down at his new watch. We should go out to celebrate you being back tonight, he offered. Let us get a reservation somewhere nice. We will see. The moment his footsteps faded down the hallway, Olivia locked the door and leaned back against it. The apartment suddenly felt entirely different. Caleb's jacket hung on the dining chair. His spare keys to the basement storage lay on the entryway console. His expensive grooming products cluttered the bathroom vanity. In the guest room, which they called the home office, his junk took up all the shelving, even though he practically never worked in there. Olivia walked through the rooms slowly. Living room, kitchen, master bedroom, office. 3 years ago he had moved in with 2 suitcases and a couple of cardboard boxes. Now his footprint was everywhere, as if his name had been on the deed from day one. Olivia sat down at her desk and called Sarah Jenkins, a tough corporate lawyer she had known since college. Sarah, I need some legal advice, she said the moment her friend picked up. Of course, what is going on? Olivia paused for a second. I am ending my relationship and I need Caleb to move out. The apartment is entirely in my name. We do not have any sort of cohabitation agreement or domestic partnership on paper. Sarah did not waste time prying into the drama. She just asked a few rapid-fire questions. Is his legal address listed there? Does he pay rent directly to you or the utility companies? Does he have any legal documentation implying tenant rights? We are going to do this completely by the book, Sarah concluded. Do not throw his stuff out. Do not illegally lock him out today. And make sure you secure your valuables and financial documents immediately. I will draft a formal 30-day notice to vacate. Olivia took notes on everything. How long will the actual process take? That entirely depends on how he reacts. But the most crucial thing is that you act methodically and stay within the bounds of state property law. That is exactly my plan. After hanging up, Olivia pulled a bright red folder from her filing cabinet. Inside, she placed the property deed, the mortgage agreement, the HOA fee receipts, and the newly printed bank statements. On the front cover, she wrote a single date, their 5th anniversary, exactly 3 weeks away. That was the exact amount of time she was giving herself to untangle their finances, safeguard her documents, and reclaim her physical space. She had no intention of throwing a screaming fit. Caleb had said he valued a stress-free life. So, Olivia decided to exit his life as quietly as humanly possible. So quietly that he would only finally understand what was happening when he had absolutely nothing left to come home to. The very first thing Olivia did on Monday morning was open a fresh Excel spreadsheet. Not because she wanted to reduce 5 years of love to a grid of rows and columns. You could not format cells to capture shared holidays, late-night talks, or all those quiet moments when she genuinely believed Caleb was her person. But math had one massive advantage over memories. Numbers simply could not lie. Olivia sat at the kitchen island with a mug of dark roast and systematically audited her accounts. She matched up the mortgage payments, the power bill, the high-speed internet, the condo insurance, the weekly grocery runs, and the weekend getaways. In the next column, she entered the exact dollar amounts Caleb had Venmoed or transferred to her each month. A year ago, his contributions were fairly consistent. Then they started to shrink. First, he was short $200, then $500. Eventually, Caleb stopped chipping in for groceries altogether, claiming he had covered the gas on their last road trip. Whenever Olivia gently brought up the household expenses, he would say he was just waiting on his quarterly bonus check to clear. The bonus was always supposedly coming next Friday. It rarely did. Olivia had never connected the dots before, because she never treated her relationship like a corporate balance sheet. When Caleb said money was tight that month, she took his word for it. When he promised to square up later, she never demanded a hard deadline. Now staring at the pivot table, the pattern was glaringly obvious. Over the last 12 months she had subsidized nearly their entire existence. Caleb contributed whenever it was convenient, and when he wanted to keep his cash, a quick excuse about bad sales numbers was all it took. She scrolled down to the credit card data. The authorized card had been swiped endlessly for things she knew absolutely nothing about. High-end sushi dinners, premium golf gear, and full tanks of gas in towns. Caleb had never claimed to be visiting for work. She was not going to drive herself crazy, guessing who he was entertaining. It simply did not matter anymore. He was exploiting her trust just as casually as he was spending her money. She closed the spreadsheet and backed all the files up to an encrypted drive. She logged into her banking app one last time to verify the secondary card was truly dead. It showed up as deactivated. For the first time in days, Olivia felt a tiny rush of relief. She had not found peace yet, but she was rapidly rebuilding her boundaries. An hour later, Caleb strolled into the kitchen. He was wearing a crisp light blue shirt that Olivia had picked up from the dry cleaners just last week. He yanked the stainless steel fridge open, stared blankly at the shelves, and let out an annoyed sigh. "My Greek yogurt is gone." Olivia did not look up from her laptop. "I was busy this weekend. You can pick some up on your way home." Caleb pushed the fridge door shut, looking genuinely confused. "You always do the grocery run on Sundays." "This Sunday I had other priorities." "Like what?" Olivia finally met his eyes. "My own things." He stared at her for a moment, as if his brain was trying to process whether he had just heard a threat. Then he gave a short dismissive smirk. "Fine, I will grab some later." He pulled out his smartphone to check his wallet app, and his expressions instantly dropped. "Did you freeze the joint card?" The secondary card was no longer necessary. "What do you mean it was no longer necessary?" "We use that for everything together. The account is mine, Caleb. And 95% of the payments came out of my checking." Caleb scowled. "You could have at least given me a heads up." Olivia closed the laptop. "I am giving you one right now, but I am already running late. I need to get gas. You know my expense check is still processing at corporate." Olivia knew that tone intimately, slightly offended, playing the helpless victim, just soft enough to trigger her deeply ingrained instinct to fix things. Normally, she would just pull out her own debit card or ask how much cash he needed. This time, she offered nothing. "Then you should probably have a serious chat with your payroll department," she said with zero inflection. Caleb pulled a stool out and sat across from her. What is going on with you? I am auditing my finances. It felt like the right time. Is this because of that New York trip? Did some career woman put ideas in your head? Olivia almost let out a laugh. Caleb honestly believed that any independent action she took had to be the result of someone else manipulating her. As if she lacked the basic intelligence to realize she was being scammed. Nobody needs to explain my own bank statements to me. Our bills, Olivia, not your bills. No, they are my bills. You just occasionally throw some money at them. Caleb sat up straight, his posture rigid. Okay, that is way out of line. I pulled the transaction data for the entire year. Are you running an audit on me? I am cleaning house. A heavy silence settled over the kitchen. Caleb drummed his fingers aggressively against the quartz countertop, glaring at her with mounting irritation. Just say what you want to say. She could have played the audio file right then. She could have put her phone on the island and watched the color drain from his face. She could have unloaded every single question she had been carrying around since Thursday. Instead, she just picked up her coffee mug. I am saying that starting this month, we pay for our own separate lives. We have been together 5 years, and suddenly you want to split every single receipt. Not every receipt, just the responsibility. Caleb scoffed quietly. You sound like a corporate accountant. I work in financial risk management. That should not shock you. He did not reply. He stood up, snatched his car keys off the counter, and walked out the front door without saying goodbye. Olivia watched him go until the door clicked shut. A month ago, she would have chased him into the hallway. She would have texted him, making sure he drove safe and apologizing for the tension. Today, she just went back to her spreadsheet. That afternoon, she logged into her Xfinity account. She permanently revoked Caleb's authorization to make changes to the internet plan. She emailed the building's property management company, updating her contact preferences so that all notices, maintenance updates, and gate codes were sent exclusively to her private email. Then she went after the subscriptions. Netflix, Spotify, Uber Eats, the premium sports package, the shared cloud storage. She paid the monthly fee for almost all of them. She logged out every connected device and updated the passwords. She did not cancel the services. She fully intended to enjoy them. But Caleb was no longer going to get free access just because he was used to everything magically working for him. He came home much later than usual that evening. He completely ignored their morning argument, acting as if he figured Olivia was just having a moody phase that would pass. He dropped onto the living room sofa, grabbed the Apple TV remote, and tried to launch the main streaming app. A prompt popped up demanding the password. Olivia, he shouted across the condo. What is the new password? She was sitting in the home office organizing her files. I changed it. Well, text it to me. You can sign up for your own account. Caleb appeared in the doorway looking bewildered. Are you serious right now? Dead serious. You honestly want me to pay for my own Netflix? I want you to realize exactly how much you have been getting handed to you without putting in an ounce of effort. It is a $15 app, Olivia. Exactly. It is a $15 app, so go buy it. He stared at her for a long time, shaking his head. I do not even know who you are right now. Olivia shut the red folder. Maybe you just never bothered to find out. Caleb spun around and marched back to the living room. A few minutes later, Olivia heard him making a phone call. He kept his voice low, but the apartment acoustics carried his words right to her. She is going through some psycho phase. She will get over it, probably just stressed at the firm. She did not need to guess who was on the other end. The only thing that mattered was that he was still utterly clueless. He genuinely thought she was throwing a temporary tantrum, that he just needed to wait her out, buy her flowers, and everything would reset to his perfect subsidized reality. Olivia opened her planner. 17 days until the anniversary. The following week, she called the resort in Estes Park and canceled the anniversary weekend. The agent confirmed that a percentage of the deposit would be refunded to her card. Using that recovered cash, she booked a charming coastal inn out in Nantucket, just a table for one. She was not running away. She just knew she would need a few days by the ocean to decompress and relearn how to enjoy a silence that was not built on lies. She printed the Nantucket confirmation and slipped it into the red folder. Her desk now held 3 perfectly organized stacks: financials, property rights, and the exit strategy. That evening, Caleb poked his head into the office, eyed the stacked binders, and gave a condescending smirk. "Doing your crazy deep cleaning again?" "Yep, just making sure my things are in order." Olivia looked up blankly. "You should really start taking care of your own things, too." He completely missed the massive neon warning sign flashing in that sentence. He just chuckled, shut the door, and went to go play video games. Olivia typed the final dollar amount into her spreadsheet and permanently deleted the column labeled joint. From this second forward, there was no joint money. There were her assets, his liabilities. And exactly 17 days until Caleb learned that the free ride he felt so entitled to had just been towed away. Olivia built the first cardboard box on a Wednesday night. She set it on the hardwood floor of the office, taped the bottom, and stared at the sheer volume of Caleb's junk that had slowly infected her space over 3 years. The shelves groaned under binders from his old sales jobs, empty iPhone boxes he refused to throw away, car magazines, and a chaotic nest of charging cables he never touched. His desk was cluttered with 2 sets of gaming headphones, a branded corporate notebook, and a mug that read "Hanon, closer." Caleb basically never used the office. He insisted he desperately needed a dedicated workspace, which forced Olivia to hunch over the kitchen island with her spreadsheets. Even though she worked from home 4 days a week, now she pulled the first binder off the shelf and laid it inside the box. She did not do it aggressively. She did not hurl his Xbox controllers across the room or dump his paperwork into a trash bag. She meticulously photographed every single item with her iPhone, then logged it into an inventory sheet. Sarah Jenkins had been very specific during their last call. Olivia needed to act with clinical precision. This is not just about avoiding small claims court, her lawyer friend had warned. It is about making sure Caleb cannot spin a victim narrative where you destroyed his property or illegally locked him out of his career documents. Olivia understood perfectly. Caleb thrived on controlling the narrative. He could spin a late arrival as an unpredictable traffic disaster, an unpaid utility bill as a banking glitch, and his own emotional unavailability as a healthy need for boundaries. If he suddenly found his belongings thrown onto the curb, he would never mention the terrible things he had said to Trevor and Marcus. He would just play the tragic hero whose crazy girlfriend went scorched earth for no reason. Olivia was going to leave 0 oxygen for that kind of fiction. Every box was assigned a tracking number. Every photo went into a time-stamped cloud album. Every inventory list was printed in duplicate. She worked methodically, dedicating 2 hours every night, while Caleb was either out entertaining clients or blasting his shows in the living room with his noise-canceling headphones on. On day 1, she cleared out the bottom shelves. Day 2, the filing cabinets. Day 3, the heavy dresser by the window. Caleb did not notice a thing. Friday morning, he stomped into the office searching for his iPad charger. He looked around and scrunched his face. "Where is that black bin with the cords?" Olivia was typing up a risk analysis report. "I packed up the stuff we never use. You packed my chargers? They are safely stored in a labeled box." "Where?" "In the storage unit." Caleb let out a heavy, dramatic sigh. "Why are you messing with my stuff?" Olivia finally broke eye contact with her monitor. That bin had an inch of dust on it. It had been sitting there for 14 months, but I knew exactly where it was. Now I know where it is, too. Caleb yanked open the closet doors and stared at the shockingly empty shelves. "Are we renovating or something?" "I am reclaiming my home office. You could always work in here whenever you wanted." Olivia just stared at the chair, which had been buried under his gym bag, a winter coat, and 2 Amazon boxes for weeks. Her tone was so frighteningly calm that Caleb completely missed the heavy sarcasm. He just snatched a spare charger and stormed out. That same Friday night, Olivia went online and ordered a sleek new bookshelf and a high-end brass desk lamp. She went with light oak and modern lines. For years, She had dreamed of a tranquil workspace where her critical financial documents were not drowning in someone else's trash. Previously, she would have talked herself out of spending the money. Today, she viewed it as her very first investment into a life where she no longer had to shrink herself to fit Caleb. On Saturday, she attacked the entryway. The coat rack was buckling under 7 of his jackets, even though he only regularly wore a North Face and a Pika coat. The shoe cubby was crammed with sneakers he had bought on impulse and never unboxed. Olivia pulled them out one by one, photographing the mint-condition soles. Box number 4 swallowed his winter gloves, beanies, leather belts, and a promotional tech backpack that had been rotting behind the door since spring. When she was done, the hallway felt twice as large. Olivia stood by the front door and stared at the empty space beneath the entryway mirror. For years, she had convinced herself that the clutter was just the natural byproduct of living with a man. Now she realized the clutter belonged exclusively to him, and she had just been playing his unpaid maid. Caleb walked in mid-afternoon carrying a plastic bag. "Where are my brown chukkas?" he barked before even taking his jacket off. "In box 4. "What the hell is box 4? "The one down in the storage unit." He dropped his bag on the floor. "Olivia, what exactly is your endgame here?" Decluttering. "You cannot just box up my life and ship it off." "I am organizing it. I am not throwing a single thing away. I do not like people digging through my personal space." Olivia looked at him dead in the eye. "And I do not like people leaving their trash all over my apartment and expecting me to constantly clean up after them." Caleb shook his head, rubbing his temples. "Here we go again." "Here we go with what?" "This whole militant phase you are in, the splitting the checks, the password lockouts, the extreme hoarding behavior. It is not a phase." "Then what is it, Olivia?" She stayed quiet for a beat. She could have dropped the hammer right there. She could have told him it was step 1 of his formal eviction. Instead, she bent down, picked up the bag he had dumped in the middle of the walking path, and set it on the bench. "A change in management," she replied. Caleb let out a short, mean laugh. "What new rules?" "The rules where 2 grown adults take care of their own responsibilities. We are a couple, Olivia, not college roommates sharing a dorm." Olivia felt a sharp spike of dark comedy. Really, obviously. He delivered the word flawlessly, without a microcond of hesitation, as if he had not literally bragged to Trevor and Marcus 5 days ago that he was sticking around for the cheap rent and the free groceries. "Then you should know exactly what equal partnership actually costs," she said. Caleb opened his mouth to argue, then aggressively snapped his jaw shut. He grabbed his bag and stalked into the kitchen. Olivia listened to him, yanked the fridge open, rattled the Tupperware, and let out a theatrical groan. "Did you seriously not buy anything for dinner?" "I bought meal prep for myself." Caleb leaned back into the hallway. "And for me. I thought we established we were managing our own groceries." "We did not establish anything. You issued a mandate just like you issued a mandate to stop paying your half of the bills for the last 4 months." His face flushed with annoyance. "Money again. It always comes back to money when the math does not match up." Caleb scoffed, pulling his phone out. "Whatever, I am ordering Uber Eats. Great idea." Olivia went back to bubble wrapping his cologne. That night, she moved on to the master bathroom. Caleb's beard oils, pomades, and moisturizers swallowed 2 glass shelves and a massive drawer. Half the bottles were functionally empty. She boxed up all his backstock, leaving him with only his toothbrush, deodorant, and daily face wash. She did not want to trigger a complete meltdown just yet. There were still 11 days until the anniversary, and Sarah Jenkins was currently finalizing the legal jargon on the notice. Every single day of peace was critical. On Monday morning, she drove to a corporate storage facility a few miles down the road. She rented a premium climate-controlled unit, signing the lease strictly in her name. The manager handed her a gate code and a brass padlock key. Another key. Olivia dropped it into a secure zipper pocket inside her purse. Over the next week, she transported the boxes in stealth waves, solely operating while Caleb was downtown at the office. She hired a local TaskRabbit crew to haul the heavy items down the freight elevator. An ugly ergonomic chair he insisted on keeping, two massive plastic bins of sales brochures, and a set of adjustable dumbbells he never actually lifted. After every trip to the facility, she updated the master inventory sheet. Back at the condo, the air felt lighter, the acoustics changed. In the office, the new oak bookshelf was installed. Olivia arranged her financial binders, a few hardcover novels, and a potted pause that was starting to vine. The brass lamp cast a warm glow over her workspace. For the first time ever, she could open her laptop, spread out her files, and set down her coffee without having to shove aside someone else's junk. She sat back in her chair and took a deep breath. She did not feel victorious. She just felt like she could breathe again. Wednesday evening, Caleb wandered into the office and froze in the doorway. "Looks nice in here," he admitted. "Thank you. Where's my desk chair?" "Storage. Storage. Where?" Olivia looked over the top of her monitor. "I rented a secure unit for the overflow without running it by me. I did not throw anything out. It is perfectly safe." Caleb stepped further into the room, scanning the corners. His eyes finally landed on the massive empty footprint where his boxes used to sit. "I swear I feel like I am being erased from this apartment," he muttered. Olivia stared at him in complete silence. It was the absolute truest thing he had said since she started the operation. He just had no idea how accurate he was. "Maybe you were just finally realizing how much space you were taking up," she replied. Caleb frowned, but eventually just shrugged. "You are acting incredibly strange lately, and you are finally starting to pay attention." He walked out, shaking his head. Olivia closed out her email and opened the calendar app. 9 days until the anniversary. All that was left on her checklist was the bedroom, the spare keys, and printing the formal eviction notice. The hardest part was rapidly approaching, but the doubt was completely gone. Room by room, she was taking back her real estate. Item by item, she was taking back her sanity. And Caleb, despite turning his key in the lock every night, was increasingly living in a place that no longer belonged to him. Exactly 7 days before the anniversary, Caleb walked in holding flowers. It was a generic bouquet of white roses, wrapped in cheap plastic from a grocery store checkout aisle, but he presented them with a swaggering smile, acting as if he had just hacked the code to solving all their recent tension. "For the most important woman in my life," he announced. Olivia was standing by the kitchen island chopping bell peppers for her dinner. She stared at the roses, her mind immediately replaying the audio file on her phone. "Until I am absolutely sure. Staying here is cheaper and totally stress-free." "What is the occasion?" she asked flatly. Caleb slipped off his pika coat and draped it over a bar stool, deliberately ignoring the coat hooks just 2 feet away. "Does there need to be an occasion?" "Historically, yes," he chuckled, clearly choosing to interpret her deadpan response as dry humor. "You've been super tense lately. I figured this might help you relax a little." "I am not tense. You are. You just will not admit it." He dropped the flowers next to her cutting board and casually threw an arm over her shoulder. Olivia smoothly stepped sideways, reaching for a glass vase in the cabinet. "Thank you," she said, keeping her voice completely neutral. Caleb watched her, looking incredibly smug. He clearly believed that a $12 bouquet had effectively erased all the arguments about bank accounts, Wi-Fi passwords, and his mysteriously vanishing belongings. Olivia snipped the stems and arranged the roses. They looked nice. It did not change the reality of the situation whatsoever. "I was actually thinking about our anniversary too," Caleb said, popping the fridge open. "Were you?" "Yeah, maybe we should take a trip somewhere." "You had a plan going, right?" Olivia set her chef's knife down. "I did, Estes Park. How do you know about that?" "I saw the hotel confirmation page open on your MacBook a while ago." He did not even hesitate to admit he had been snooping at her screen. He said it with supreme entitlement, as if her personal laptop and travel plans were public property. "The reservation is cancelled," she replied. Caleb spun around, slamming the fridge door. "Why?" "I changed my itinerary." Without asking me, Olivia almost cracked a smile. He always dragged out that same indignant question whenever she made an autonomous decision regarding her own apartment, her own money, or her own schedule. I was the one paying for the reservation, she reminded him. But it was supposed to be our anniversary trip. It is not anymore. Caleb crossed his arms. Are you trying to send me some kind of message here? I have been sending a lot of messages for the last 2 weeks, Caleb. You get one-word answers. Your stuff is in cardboard boxes, and I treat you like a complete stranger. Olivia locked eyes with him. He had the chance right now. All he had to do was rewind his memory to that night with Trevor and Marcus. All he had to do was wonder if he had been too loud. All he had to do was connect her sudden coldness with his own toxic behavior. But Caleb never looked inward for the source of a problem. Maybe you need to talk to a therapist about why you are acting so hostile. He deflected. You are taking this organizing kick way too far. Right, my mistake. Olivia picked up the knife and went back to the peppers. Caleb hovered in the kitchen for a minute before slumping into a dining chair and pulling out his iPhone. His thumbs flew across the glass. A faint, arrogant smile crept onto his face. Who are you texting? She asked. She did not yell. The tone was chillingly casual. Caleb immediately flipped the phone face down on the table. A client. Not everyone logs off at 400 p.m. Olivia nodded. She did not ask to see the screen. She did not need any more smoking guns to validate her exit strategy. The 43-minute audio file was the only ammunition required. Everything else just proved his stamina for lying. The next day, Olivia took the elevator up to Sarah Jenkins's corner office on State Street. The attorney slid a crisp, legally binding notice to vacate across the mahogany desk. The document was an absolute masterpiece of sterile corporate hostility, no emotion, no dramatic accusations. It simply stated that Olivia was the sole legal proprietor of the residence and that Caleb had exactly 30 days to remove his remaining property and surrender all keys and building fobs. I kept the relationship drama out of the clauses, Sarah explained, tapping a designer pen on her legal pad. This is not a breakup letter. This is a legally enforceable eviction. That is exactly what I want. Are you absolutely positive you want to serve him on the actual anniversary? Olivia looked out the floor-to-ceiling windows. Down below, Bostonians were rushing through the financial district, pulling their coats tight against the wind coming off the harbor. For 5 years, that date meant everything to me, she said softly. I refused to let it become an annual reminder of how long I was played for a fool. I want to override it. I want it to be the exact day I took my life back. Sarah nodded slowly. Okay, just prepare yourself for the fallout. He is going to cycle through the playbook. Denial, making wild promises, calling you a heartless psycho, and laying on the heavy guilt trips. I know. Do not get sucked into a screaming match. Just repeat that the legal process has been initiated. If he refuses to hand over the keys, do not physically fight him for them. We will alert building security and escalate it through the courts. Olivia agreed. She had zero interest in a chaotic, screaming reality TV-style blowout. She just wanted to permanently lock him out of the VIP lounge he had been treating her life like. Sarah pushed the document closer. Proofread the dates. Olivia scanned the lines, the legal deadline to vacate, the address of the rented storage unit, the clause regarding the secure holding of his property, the demand for the metal keys and the electronic garage clicker. She clicked her pen and signed her name at the bottom in bold blue ink. That night, Caleb came home incredibly late. Olivia was sitting in the living room reading a hardcover thriller when she heard the deadbolt turn. He strutted inside, humming some pop song. He was wearing a brand new tailored shirt and reared of a completely different designer cologne than he normally wore. The client dinner ran insanely long, he announced, preempting a question she had not even asked. I didn't ask. I know, just keeping you in the loop. He tossed his phone onto the coffee table, kicked off his Chelsea boots and vanished into the bathroom. A few seconds later, the phone screen lit up. Olivia had zero intention of snooping. She did not have to. The massive font size of the lock screen notification made it readable from the sofa. Chloe, did you figure out the apartment situation yet? I am not going to wait around forever. Olivia read the text exactly once. She wasn't shocked. It was just the final puzzle piece snapping into place. Caleb was not just using her condo as a free ride. He was actively leveraging her real estate to secure his next target, promising Chloe a glamorous downtown lifestyle he absolutely did not own. When he strolled back from the bathroom, he immediately lunged for the phone, saw the notification, and shot a panicked glance at Olivia. "Work emergency?" she asked dryly. "Yeah, supply chain nightmare with a vendor." He lied effortlessly. Olivia marked her page and closed the book. "Caleb, are you genuinely happy with where your life is right now?" The philosophical question completely derailed him. "What kind of late-night TED Talk is this?" "It is a simple question." He sank onto the opposite couch. "Yeah, of course I am. I have a killer job, this amazing condo, and you." The exact priority order of that list was not lost on her. Job, condo, girlfriend. "And where do you see yourself in another 5 years?" she pressed. Caleb shrugged, looking annoyed. "Why over-engineer everything? We have a great setup right now." "You have a great setup." "We both do. You are just trying to invent drama out of thin air lately." Olivia stared at him. The man sitting across from her was entirely blind. He did not notice the barren closets, the severed bank accounts, or the fact that the woman looking at him had emotionally checked out weeks ago. All he saw were minor glitches in his luxury matrix. "Maybe things will become much clearer very soon," she said. "I sure hope so." He grabbed his phone and retreated to the bedroom. Olivia sat alone in the dim light. She slid the signed legal notice into a heavy cream-colored envelope. Then she plugged a sleek black flash drive into her laptop and copied the Truth audio file onto it. She wrote the password for the encrypted file on a post-it note. She locked the envelope inside a drawer in the dining buffet. A drawer Caleb never opened because he never cared about household logistics unless someone else was handling them. 4 days to their anniversary. The next morning, Caleb was acting aggressively charming. He brewed a peruver, offered to take her to a high-end steakhouse, and claimed he had the entire upcoming weekend completely blocked out. "It is a massive surprise," he announced, flashing a $1 million smile. "Pack a really nice dress." Olivia knew the joint credit card was dead. She knew he had been complaining about being cash poor. She briefly wondered whose credit card was actually supposed to fund this imaginary luxury weekend. "I already have an itinerary mapped out," she replied. "Doing what?" "You will find out on our anniversary." Caleb's smile widened. He was absolutely certain she had caved and booked a lavish trip for them. "I knew you would snap out of this funk." Olivia looked at him over the rim of her coffee mug. She did not correct him. She did not tell him that she had snapped out of nothing. Actually, her vision was 20/20 for the first time in years. Caleb thought he had won because Olivia wasn't shouting, wasn't interrogating him, and was still sitting across from him at breakfast. He failed to comprehend that her silence was not submission. It was the sound of the glass doors permanently sealing shut. "So, what time is our flight? Because if this is a surprise trip, I at least need to know the climate so I can pack." Caleb practically skipped into the kitchen, dragging an expensive aluminum carry-on bag behind him. He was dressed in tailored navy slacks, a crisp button-down, and the luxury watch Olivia had brought back from New York. The exact same watch she handed him the morning after she listened to him call her a free ride. Olivia was sitting perfectly still at the kitchen island. In front of her sat the cream envelope and the black flash drive. Outside, Boston was waking up to a brutal overcast fall morning. Rain lashed against the glass, and the distant screech of the Green Line train echoed down the avenue. Exactly 5 years ago today, Olivia and Caleb had met for their first date at a hipster coffee shop in Capitol Hill. For a long time, she had treated this calendar date as the genesis of her life's great romance. Today, it was the genesis of a demolition. "We are not flying anywhere together," she answered. Caleb stopped dead in his tracks. "What do you mean?" "The Estes Park reservation was voided weeks ago. We talked about this. I thought you booked something better." He eyed the thick envelope on the counter, and his smug grin returned instantly. "I knew it." He abandoned the suitcase by the fridge and sat across from her. "I am not going to lie. You had me sweating these last few weeks," he confessed smoothly. "The insane cleaning, cutting me off the accounts, locking the Wi-Fi." But I get it now. You were throwing me off the scent for the big reveal. Olivia said absolutely nothing. Caleb reached across the marble for the envelope. May I? It is entirely yours. He tore through the heavy paper like a kid on Christmas morning. First, the black flash drive tumbled out. He rolled it between his thumb and index finger, thoroughly confused. Then, he pulled out the stapled legal documents. His arrogant smile began to evaporate in real time. He read the header, then the first paragraph. What the hell is this? He demanded. A formal 30-day notice to vacate the premises. Caleb blinked rapidly, staring at the paper as if the ink might magically rearrange itself into plane tickets. Vacate what? Everything is explicitly outlined in the legal brief. I have secured your property. The vast majority of your belongings are already in a climate-controlled storage unit. The facility address, gate code, and unit number are detailed on page 2. You packed my things? Yes, without asking for my consent. I did not throw a single item in the trash. Everything was photographed, inventoried, and boxed in bubble wrap. Caleb slammed the papers onto the island. Olivia, knock it off. Is this a sick prank? No, today is our 5-year anniversary. I am heavily aware of the date. We have been together for half a decade, and you are serving me with eviction papers like I am a deadbeat tenant. Olivia kept her voice dangerously calm. The notice is a legal formality. I wanted everything documented on paper so you could not play the victim later and claim you were confused. Caleb let out a high, frantic laugh. Confused about what? You have been acting like a psycho for a month, and now you are suddenly kicking me out onto the street. You did not even have the decency to talk to me about whatever is bothering you. Olivia pushed the black flash drive toward him. That is what the audio file is for. Caleb looked at the small piece of plastic. For the very first time that morning he shut his mouth. What audio file? He asked cautiously. Olivia opened her MacBook, plugged the drive into the USB port, and clicked the single file on the screen. Truth. Caleb stared at the file name, but his brain was still playing catch-up. Olivia hit the spacebar. First, the heavy static of the brownstone hallway. Then, Trevor's voice echoed out of the laptop speakers. So, when are you finally going to propose to Olivia? A brief pause. Then, Caleb's unmistakable voice filled the kitchen. Marry Olivia? You have got to be kidding me. I am just with her for convenience. The man at the kitchen island turned to stone. Olivia did not look at the screen. She kept her eyes locked directly on his face. The audio continued with the laughter of his friends. The apartment is awesome. She handles the majority of the bills. The fridge is always fully stocked. Why would I give that up? Caleb lunged across the counter toward the keyboard. Shut it off. Olivia tapped the spacebar, pausing the playback. A suffocating silence blanketed the kitchen. It was not the agonizing, anxious silence Olivia had endured for weeks. This time, the silence was purely the sound of the game being over. Where did you get that? Caleb whispered. I took an earlier Acela back from New York. All the blood drained from his face, leaving him a sickening shade of gray. When that exact Thursday night, I texted you that I would be home by 7. Caleb stared at the granite, his mind desperately rewinding the tape of his life 3 weeks backward. You were standing in the hallway. I was standing outside the door to my own home, and you illegally recorded a private conversation. Olivia had predicted this exact pivot. Instead of showing an ounce of remorse for what he actually said, Caleb immediately tried to put her on trial for how she caught him. I recorded a conversation about my real estate and my bank accounts, she replied coldly. I secured the file solely as an insurance policy. I am not blasting it on social media, and I am not blackmailing you for cash. I just needed ironclad proof so you could never successfully gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. Caleb pushed his stool back, standing up. It was locker room talk. Olivia, I was drinking with the guys. Guys say stupid trash to sound cool. You also mentioned Chloe. Caleb froze again. I have no idea who you are talking about. Olivia reached for the spacebar. There is this girl, Chloe. She works at one of my clients' offices. We have grabbed coffee a few times. Caleb violently slapped the keyboard, pausing it again. I never even slept with her. I never asked if you did. Then, what is your problem? My problem is finding out exactly what my market value was to you. Caleb started pacing the length of the kitchen, running his hands aggressively through his hair. He stopped by the sink. Olivia, look at me. I said some incredibly toxic garbage because Trevor and Marcus were pressuring me. I was just trying to look like the alpha of the group. Mission accomplished. That is not how I actually feel about you. It sounded remarkably articulate for a lie. He spun back toward her. I gave you 5 years of my life. Does that hold zero weight? It held the world to me. Olivia fired back. But to you it was just subsidized rent, free utilities, and a personal chef. You cannot nuke our entire future over one bad night. I am not nuking anything over one night. That night just provided the subtitle track to 5 years of behavior I kept making excuses for. Caleb sat back down. His arrogant swagger was completely gone, replaced by a desperate, panicked scrambling. Let me take you to dinner. We can go to counseling. I can explain all of this. I require absolutely zero explanations. We have to try to salvage this. You were trying to secure an upgrade. I am just securing my peace. Chloe means nothing to me. Then why did she text you asking if you had figured out the apartment situation yet? Caleb flinched like he had been struck. You are reading my private text now. Your phone lit up on the coffee table like a billboard. Whatever you saw, it is wildly out of context. Context is irrelevant to me now. What is highly relevant is that you were apparently dangling my real estate in front of another woman to close the deal. I never told her I owned the place. Did you ever explicitly tell her that I owned it? Caleb stared at the floor. Olivia closed the MacBook with a sharp snap. You have until the legal deadline listed in the paperwork to clear out the rest of your junk and surrender the metal keys. If you need to enter the premises before then, you will text me for approval first. I will not tolerate unannounced visits or screaming matches in the hallway. I live here too, Olivia. This is my home. No, Calb. This was a property I permitted you to occupy because I was under the delusion we were partners. I paid rent. I contributed. Olivia pulled the printed Excel spreadsheet from the red folder and slid it across the island. Here is the transaction log for the trailing 12 months. You are in default by several thousand, based on our initial handshake agreement. I am not taking you to small claims for the balance. Consider it the tuition fee for the lesson I just graduated from. Caleb stared at the columns of numbers, but did not touch the paper. Where am I supposed to sleep tonight? Olivia looked at him without a shred of pity. A month ago, that pathetic tone would have broken her heart. She would have immediately jumped onto Airbnb or called in favors from friends. Today, she just remembered how casually he stated he was staying with her because it was stress-free. You are 30 years old, she answered. You have a corporate salary, parents in the suburbs, and a phone full of buddies. Your housing logistics are no longer my burden. Caleb looked over at his packed luxury suitcase sitting by the door. You really engineered this whole thing like a military op. I had 21 days and you just smiled and faked it the entire time. I did not fake a thing. I severed our joint accounts, boxed up your trash, and resigned from my unpaid internship as your life manager. The fact that you were too self-absorbed to notice your own life being dismantled is not my fault. That hit him like a physical blow. Caleb finally looked around the kitchen, really looking this time. The missing coffee mugs, the empty shelf space, the bright red legal folder, the suitcase he had packed for a romantic getaway that never existed. Is there a single sequence of words I can say right now that will make you stop this? He asked, his voice cracking slightly. No, even after 5 years, specifically because of those 5 years, Caleb sat paralyzed for a long time. Finally, he grabbed the legal documents, the spreadsheet, and the black flash drive, shoving them all into his laptop bag. Then, he unclasped the luxury watch from his wrist and slammed it onto the marble island. I do not want your charity, he spat. Olivia used one finger to slide the heavy watch right back toward him. Take it. Let it serve as a daily reminder that other people's time is incredibly expensive. Caleb snatched the watch and marched toward the door. With his hand on the brass knob, he looked back over his shoulder. I honestly thought you loved me. Olivia met his gaze dead on. I loved the man I hallucinated you were, you just loved the completely free ride. Caleb walked out. The heavy door clicked shut behind him. Olivia stood alone in a Boston apartment that for the first time in 36 months was entirely, legally, and physically hers. She walked over to the bay window and looked down at the rainy street. Caleb emerged from the awning, dragging his aluminum suitcase through the puddles, furiously typing on his phone, probably trying to figure out which frat brother had an open couch. When he woke up that morning, he thought he was heading out for a premium anniversary vacation. Now he was holding an eviction notice, a devastating audio file, and the passcode to a storage locker filled with the mess he always expected Olivia to clean up. Olivia unlocked her phone and opened the calendar app. She deleted the block labeled Our Anniversary. In its place, she typed a single word, beginning. The first text message from Caleb came through at 9:00 p.m. that night. We need to sit down and talk like adults. Olivia read the banner notification while sitting at the kitchen island, but she did not even bother unlocking the screen. In front of her sat a mug of chamomile tea and a fresh legal pad with her next to-do list. Call the locksmith, reprogram the gate buzzer, confirm the storage unit transfer, have lunch with Sarah. Just a month ago, a text like that from Caleb would have spiked her cortisol. She would have instantly started analyzing if he was mad, if he needed emotional support, or if she had been too harsh. Today, she just saw digital static. It was not a command, it was not an obligation, it was just a text message from an ex-tenant that she could easily ignore. A few minutes later, the screen lit up again. You cannot nuke a 5-year relationship over one stupid night with the guys. Olivia flipped the phone face down. She had not nuked a 5-year relationship over one night. That night was just the translator she needed to understand the foreign language Caleb had been speaking for years. The endless excuses about cash flow, the brutal dodging of commitment, the escalating apathy, the secret coffee dates. Caleb fundamentally believed that her apartment, her money, and her emotional labor were an endless utility he could tap into forever. The audio file did not destroy the relationship. It just proved that the relationship had only ever been a solo project. The next morning, Sarah Jenkins called. "How is the patient holding up?" the lawyer asked. Olivia looked across the pristine, completely decluttered living room, significantly more peaceful than I anticipated. "Caleb has been blowing up my phone, though. Just remember the protocol. You are under zero legal obligation to respond to emotional bait. Only engage if it concerns the logistics of the keys or his remaining property." "I know, and absolutely do not let him back into the condo without a third party present. If he starts getting aggressive, we will handle it strictly through the courts." "I highly doubt he is going to throw a tantrum," Olivia replied. "He is way too obsessed with playing the victim right now." Sarah let out a sharp laugh. "Good. Stick to the cold, hard facts." That afternoon, Caleb had a massive floral arrangement delivered to Olivia's corporate office. It was a massive upgrade from the grocery store roses. Tucked inside the hydrangeas was a card. 5 years deserves a second chance. Olivia did not throw them in the trash. She handed them to the office manager and asked her to put them in the main conference room, so the whole floor could enjoy them. She slipped the card into her purse, not as a sentimental keepsake, but as Exhibit B that Caleb was still relying on financial gestures to avoid taking actual accountability. Later that week, Trevor texted her. "Olivia, I am really sorry about that night. I should not have laughed. I honestly had no idea Caleb actually viewed you that way." She sent a single reply. "Thanks for reaching out. Hopefully, the next time someone degrades a woman in front of you, you will find the courage to speak up before the damage is done." Trevor never texted back. Marcus tried his luck the following day, claiming the whole conversation was violently taken out of context and that Caleb had always respected her. Olivia immediately blocked his number. The audio clip was 43 minutes long. She had plenty of context. On Saturday, Caleb arrived to collect his final boxes. Per Zara's strict instructions, the lawyer was standing right there in the apartment. Olivia opened the door but did not step aside to let him wander in, breaking a 3-year habit. She simply pointed to the 2 cardboard boxes staged in the entryway. Caleb looked wrecked. The tailored shirts and luxury watch were gone, replaced by a faded hoodie and heavy bags under his eyes. He glared at Sarah. "Do we seriously need a chaperone for this?" he asked bitterly. "We need clear legal boundaries," Olivia answered. Caleb shot her a look of pure resentment. "You are treating me like some kind of criminal. I am treating you like a liability." Sarah handed him a clipboard with the final exit checklist. "Please verify the inventory and sign at the bottom." Caleb scrolled his signature violently. "The rest of my life is sitting in that storage locker." "Yes," Olivia confirmed. "The rent is paid through the end of the month. You will need to physically go to the front office to transfer the lease to your name or clear it out by the 31st. Always optimizing the timeline down to the final second," he sneered. Olivia did not take the bait. Caleb walked over to the console table and aggressively dropped his heavy keychain and the electronic garage fob onto the marble. He held on to the small brass mailbox key for a second, rolling it between his fingers. "You know, if you had just talked to me, I probably would have asked for an extension on the move out," he muttered. "You had a 3-week extension. You spent 3 weeks plotting behind my back. I spent 3 weeks legally terminating a partnership that you were shopping around behind my back for months." Caleb's jaw clenched. "Chloe blocked my number." Olivia raised an eyebrow but stayed silent. "I tried to call her from the hotel the other night," he admitted, his voice dropping. "She told me she was not interested in being dragged into a messy domestic dispute. Apparently, she operated under the assumption that I held the deed to this place." "I wonder who gave her that highly specific impression," Olivia noted dryly. Caleb stared at his worn-out sneakers. For the first time since the breakup, he did not launch a counterattack. "I guess I kind of pitched it like it was our place," he mumbled. "You didn't pitch it like it was ours. You pitched it like it was yours." The hallway went dead silent. Sarah stood a few feet back, granting them a sliver of privacy, but her imposing presence kept the temperature in the room strictly professional. "I am sleeping on Trevor's futon," Caleb blurted out. "Just until I get a lease signed." Olivia gave a single clinical nod. "I hope you find a great place. That is it, you just hope I find a great place." "What exact reaction are you fishing for, Caleb?" "I do not know. Maybe for you to ask if I am okay." Olivia looked at him completely devoid of anger. "I spent 5 straight years asking if you were okay. I spent 5 years anticipating your problems before you even had to verbalize them. I managed the calendar, tracked the bills, bought the groceries, and made all the excuses. And while I was doing all of that, you were sitting on my couch trying to calculate when a better offer was going to walk into your life." Caleb looked away. "I made a massive mistake." "No, Caleb. Forgetting to pay the electric bill is a mistake. You executed a multi-year strategy. You made the active choice to sleep next to me while holding zero respect for me. You made the choice to weaponize my financial stability. You made the choice to sit around with your boys and review my existence like I was a subscription service instead of a human being. Is there really zero chance we ever fix this?" Olivia looked down at the keys resting on the marble table. "Zero." Caleb nodded slowly. He didn't fight back this time. He hoisted the 2 boxes, carried them out to the elevator, and vanished. When the heavy door clicked shut, Olivia threw the deadbolt. There was no overwhelming surge of victory. She wasn't sitting around praying for Caleb's downfall, hoping he lost his job or went broke. His disasters were simply no longer on her payroll. The true victory was the profound realization that she never had to fix his life again. On Monday morning, a commercial locksmith swapped out the dead bolts. Olivia programmed a new 6-digit PIN for the building gate and handed Sarah a spare set of keys. That evening, she sat in her new home office, sipping wine under the brass lamp. The Pause plant on the oak shelf had just pushed out a bright green leaf. A week later, Olivia boarded a ferry to Nantucket. She spent 3 days walking the windswept beaches in a heavy wool sweater, eating clam chowder in quiet taverns, and ignoring her phone for hours on end. She never once wondered where Caleb was, if he was running late, or if she was going to have to cover his half of the dinner check. The silence in her brain didn't feel hollow anymore, it felt like prime real estate. Months later, through the grapevine of mutual Boston friends, Olivia heard that Caleb had finally signed a lease on a cramped studio apartment way out in the suburbs. He was reportedly struggling to manage his own utilities, complaining constantly about the price of groceries, and missing critical deadlines. Word on the street was that he openly admitted he had no idea how much heavy lifting Olivia had been doing behind the scenes to keep his life afloat. Olivia did not react to the gossip. She didn't need Ostimus' apology delivered, only because he ran out of clean laundry and free Wi-Fi. She was entirely focused on her own trajectory. She finally enrolled in that advanced digital photography workshop in Cambridge she had been putting off for 2 years. She hosted wine nights with her girlfriends. Above her desk, she framed a photograph she had taken on the Nantucket coast, a vast gray ocean, an endless sky, and a set of footprints walking strictly in one direction. She still had the Truth audio file locked in a secure cloud vault. She never listened to it again. She did not need to. The truth was no longer just the cowardly voice of a man leaking through a wooden door. The truth was the sprawling, peaceful apartment where Olivia could finally breathe. The truth was the brass keys resting securely in her own pocket. The truth was that for half a decade she had confused endless patience with the obligation to endure disrespect. Caleb had branded her a convenience. What his arrogant spreadsheet failed to calculate was that one day the convenience might decide to freeze the credit cards, pack up the moving boxes, change the locks, and permanently close the account. And when that happened, the man who thought he had rigged the system was left standing totally alone, holding the bill for a life he never actually knew how to afford. Olivia didn't win because Caleb suffered the consequences of his own ego. She won because she finally stopped betting against herself. For 5 years, Olivia believed she was investing in a shared future. Caleb treated her bank account, her home, and her loyalty like an executive airport lounge, a comfortable place to kill time until a first-class upgrade became available. When she finally intercepted the truth, she didn't throw a useless tantrum. She secured her assets, legally documented the eviction, and surgically removed the infection from her life. Her greatest triumph wasn't kicking a freeloader out onto the Boston pavement. It was permanently revoking his access to her peace of mind. This story proves that walking away in total silence is rarely a sign of weakness. Often it is the devastating sound of a woman who has completely run out of excuses and started executing a plan. What would you have done if you were standing in Olivia's shoes on that stairwell? If you intercepted that conversation, would you have kicked the door open and demanded an immediate trial? Or would you have quietly backed away and hired a lawyer? Let me know down in the comments what you think the ultimate betrayal was. Caleb bragging to his friends about using her for cheap rent, or the fact that he let her believe in a fake future for half a decade.